In 1875, Katherine Wilson arrives in Portland determined to prove that a woman past 30 can still build a life shaped by her own dreams. Far from the judgment she left behind, she throws herself into teaching in a rough, unfinished schoolhouse on the Oregon frontier. But just as she begins to stand on her own, she crosses paths with James McAllister, a quiet carpenter whose kindness unsettles every wall she's built around her heart. As harsh seasons close in and unexpected tenderness awakens between them, Katherine must face the truth she's long avoided: independence and love can coexist, if she's brave enough to claim both. In the year 1875, Katherine Wilson stepped off the rattling westbound train with nothing but a carpetbag, a stiff-backed resolve, and the quiet ache of starting life over at 32, an age the world insisted was far too late for reinvention. Portland, Oregon, stood before her like a promise. A city growing with the frontier, buzzing with opportunity, yet wild enough that a determined woman could still carve out her own way. Katherine had left behind whispers in Ohio, neighbors who shook their heads at her advanced age, relatives who insisted a woman's life must orbit marriage and children, and nothing else. But Katherine longed for something more than the confines of expectation. She wanted independence, meaningful work, and the power to shape her own story. When she accepted a position as a schoolteacher in a small but expanding district on the edge of Portland, she felt, for the first time in years, that the horizon belonged to her. Life in the West was not gentle. Her first weeks in Portland were filled with hard realities: narrow wages, long hours, and a classroom in a half-finished building where cold wind slipped through the wall planks. Yet Katherine met each challenge with steady courage. She sewed her own curtains, patched together her living quarters above the school, and spent evenings preparing lessons by lamplight, determined to prove, to herself more than anyone, that she could succeed. And the children, the children. They arrived in mismatched boots, with runny noses and bright, curious eyes, some speaking English haltingly, others too shy to speak at all. Katherine found herself pouring her heart into teaching them letters, stories, and the wonder of maps showing places they had never dreamed of. The more she gave, the more she grew into the life she was creating. But Katherine had not expected him. James McAllister, tall, calm, and carrying the scent of sawdust and cedar, was a local carpenter hired to finish the schoolhouse. Their first meeting was accidental. He stepped into her classroom early one morning, blueprint in hand, and found her standing on a crate, fighting a stubborn shutter that refused to stay open. "You look like you're wrestling a mule," he said with a quiet smile. "And losing," Katherine replied, breathless and embarrassed. From that moment, something shifted. Their conversations began simply, discussions about repairs, schedules, the schoolhouse door that groaned like an old horse whenever the wind blew. But soon, they found themselves talking about books, childhood memories, and the strange, hopeful courage it took to start over. James, a widower, understood loneliness. He had buried his grief beneath work and quiet living, until Katherine's gentle strength stirred something he thought had died with his past. Katherine, cautious and guarded, told herself she did not need a man to complete her life. She had fought too hard for her independence. Yet she could not deny the warmth James brought into her carefully ordered world. He listened, not as someone evaluating her choices, but as someone who respected them. He admired her independence, rather than fearing it. Still, fear lingered. Katherine had spent years building walls against the judgment of others. The thought of opening her heart, of risking disappointment or losing control of her own path, terrified her more than the dangers of the frontier. But fate has a way of testing even the strongest doubts. One late autumn evening, when Katherine fell ill with a fever and could not stand long enough to fetch water, it was James who arrived at her door with medicine, broth, and worry etched across his face. For 2 days he cared for her without question, his presence steady and comforting, his actions speaking a language she had long taught herself to ignore, tenderness without condition. In those quiet moments, Katherine understood a truth she had resisted. Independence and companionship were not enemies. Strength and love did not cancel each other out. Real partnership did not trap a woman, it helped her rise higher. When winter settled over the Oregon frontier, Katherine Wilson found not only the life she had fought so hard to build, but a love that honored her spirit rather than diminishing it. In James McAllister, she discovered not a rescuer, but a partner. Someone who walked beside her, not ahead or behind. Her new beginning had become something richer than she ever imagined, a life shaped by her own will, and a love born from mutual respect.